Hey, PSY230 students, we're going to try this again. This is our week 2 check-in video, and hopefully the audio and the video sync up this time. I've been having technology issues with this, and then also had a presentation at a conference this week that has gotten eaten into my time a bit. So what I want to do in this video is give you a little bit of an overview of what week 2 covers, and then also prep you for all the assignments that are due this Sunday. First thing is this is often the week where students start to get challenged a little bit more, and that's because basically chapters 1 through 3 are often review, at least at some level, for most students. Not everybody, but most. And so it's usually not particularly difficult. But then once we hit chapter 4, our measures of spread or measures of variability, that's where sometimes students have less experience and less prior knowledge. And so it's more challenging. And then also sometimes if they have had some prior experience, the calculations and the way we do it in this class are going to often be a little different than the way they've done it in the past. So I just want to let you know that if you're finding that this is starting to get a little more challenging, that is normal, that most students start to experience that around chapter 4. I also want to remind you that I'm always available to talk with you, so definitely reach out to me. Email is the easiest. If my office hours work for you, go ahead and make an appointment there. But otherwise, email me and then we can set up a time to meet. I also want to remind you that Jay in the Social Behavioral Learning Center provides tutoring, and he often explains things very well, differently sometimes than I do, or uses different examples, and that can be really helpful. He should be probably, and I believe he might have emailed already regarding some study sessions this weekend, one probably on Saturday, and then he sometimes does one Monday, but that would probably be too late for you all since the test is due Sunday night. But reach out to him also to set up any kind of one-on-one tutoring. Other than that, let me just sort of give you an overview of the 2 chapters this week. It's measures of spread. So this is, again, a descriptive statistic, and it's describing our data, but whereas the measures of center describe kind of a typical or average score, measures of spread look at how different everybody's scores are from each other and also from the mean. So the best measure of spread that we have is the standard deviation. That works the best as a descriptive statistic. And so it's kind of like the mean. The mean is our best measure of center when it comes to describing a group of scores. Standard deviation is our best measure of spread when it comes to describing a group of scores. Then we get into chapter 5, which is Z-scores. Now, a Z-score shifts a little bit. It's still a descriptive statistic at this point, but it shifts because instead of describing a group, it uses what we know about a group of scores and then helps you identify where an individual is within that group. So what you'll see is it actually takes the mean and the standard deviation, our 2 best measures for center and spread, and uses that to then calculate a Z-score for any individual in that group. And that Z-score will locate where that person is in the distribution of scores. So like think about it on a test. If the mean is 80 and you had a score of 90, we could know, okay, you're above the mean. But a Z-score is going to tell you whether you're above or below the mean and how far from the mean on the scale of a standard deviation. So it's a very good way to identify where somebody is in a group of scores. Z-scores you'll see in the literature, not infrequently, but also you'll see them more practically. Again, in medicine, in psychology, in physical therapy or physical training. A Z-score, if you know that you're working with a client or a patient who has a Z-score of +2, that means that's a pretty unusual measurement, meaning that it's a really high score, well above average. It's technically 2 standard deviations above average, which is a pretty unusual score. But if you're working with somebody who's got a Z-score of something closer to 0, like a -0.2, that's pretty much 0. That's telling you that while that person is slightly below average, they're pretty much average. They're very close to the mean. So you will see Z-scores in more practical settings in a lot of your future careers, but also know that then we're going to take the Z-score after exam 1. We're going to then the next 3 chapters continue doing Z-scores, but add a little bit each time. And in chapter 6, we'll start adding probability, and then we'll be doing z-scores for sample means. And then in chapter 8, we'll get to full-on inferential statistics, where we're going to teach you how to do hypothesis testing. So we're going to continue with z-scores, but for now, you're just going to use it as a descriptive statistic. And then after this first exam, we're going to start using z-score to help us prep and actually do inferential statistics. Okay, so that's kind of the topics for this week. In terms of assignments, let me pull up our Canvas site. So if you look at this, what we'll see is, I'm going to change it to the student view here. If we go to week 2 here, we're mostly, again, focused on chapter 4 and chapter 5. And so you've got your typical muddy point and your problem sets. But you also see there's a deep dive descriptive statistics. So this is our first chance to use Jamovi as a statistical program. Now, if you click on this assignment, there's instructions in the assignment, and then there's also a link in the assignment to more specific instructions for how to do the Jamovi side of things, as well as, so it walks you through how to use Jamovi. For most people, the best thing to do is just download it onto your computer. It will, if you click on the download, it'll detect that you're working with a Mac or a PC or a Chromebook, and then it will help you download the right one. And then usually that goes pretty well, and that's often the best way to do it. However, I occasionally have students where their computer can't quite handle the program. And so I want you to be aware that it is also available on MySCC. So MySCC, let me just create a new tab here. MySCC is myscc.scottsdalecc.edu. You can get to it from the Scottsdale CC website. Okay. We'll do allow for now. But I'll just show you how to get there from SCC's website. So if we go to SCC's website and you go to students up here, on the right-hand side, you'll see a bunch of links, and then there's MySCC. So if you go into MySCC and you log in with what you normally would do, your MEID and your password, it will take you into MySCC. At first, you have, this is something I have to do. You don't have to do this. But then it will take you to a list of programs. And from that program, you should be able to find Jamovi on there, and you can run it remotely if you need to. So if you struggle with any of that, call the SCC help desk to help them, have them help you get that up and running. So again, it's MySCC. So this will walk you through how to use MySCC and how to enter everything and run all of the descriptive statistics. And then for the assignment at the very end in step 8 here, which is down here, analyze your descriptive statistics. So once you run it through Jamovi, I want you to answer a couple questions about it. So it's just simply your opportunity to interpret some statistics and see how well you understand what you're getting. So instead of having to worry about calculating them, the program will calculate it for you, and then you can focus on interpreting. So those questions are there, but I'll also point out that they are at the bottom of the assignment on Canvas too. It's the same questions are listed here. So what you're going to do is create a document that has your answers to these questions as well as the Jamovi printouts. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is that this assignment can be you can put in some early work for your research project. It doesn't have to be done for this assignment, but if you want to save a little time later in the class, you can set up and essentially collect your data now for your research project. It doesn't really take much to set it up and collect the data. You just simply, if you're working by yourself, have 20 people that you're going to ask some questions, or if you're working in pair with somebody else, then you just need 40 total people. But you can gather your data now, and then that can save you time later on. If you haven't been able to set up anything with somebody else, because we don't have a lot of contact with each other since we're not live, you can use the open class discussion board, which is just simply a discussion, and we got at least one person who's already put in there if they want to, they're looking for somebody for the research project. So go ahead and use that to find other people to team up with, because ultimately, especially for the research project, it ends up being about half the work. Now, again, you do not have to do in pairs for this assignment. So you can end up deciding later to work in pairs and do the research project. But this might be a way to save a little time on that project. So you can read all on that, but that's just something I want you to be aware of, that we do have that assignment coming due. And then the other assignment that is besides the exam is our discussion on variability. So this takes you to another website called Desmos, and you're going to go through an exercise there. The exercise tends to work better the later you go to it. So if you're one of the early students, and already people have gone in here and answered, but if you're interested, go back to it, because more and more students' stuff will be visible to you, and it will end up making a lot more sense. When I grade this, I'll also try to explain some of it to you if you found it confusing, because sometimes, especially for an online class, this exercise can be a little confusing. So that's another assignment due this week. And then otherwise, the other new thing is just remember we have the exam. So the exam for this class, it is a mix of multiple choice and matching questions along with some computational questions. It covers, for this test, chapters 1 through 5, and most of the questions should seem pretty familiar because they'll be similar to what you have on the problem sets. But there'll be occasionally questions that, take what you know and then ask you to apply it slightly differently. The problem set should prepare you for the exam. One thing to know is you can go back to your old problem sets. If you go to WebAssign and you log in, it will show you your coming due assignments, but if you scroll to the bottom or you click on My Assignments at the top, you'll see then eventually a button that says Past Assignments. If you click on that, you'll see all your past assignments and you can open them up and look at them. And in most of the cases, if there's a randomly generated component to that question, you can click on it and practice it. There'll be a button that says Practice Another Version, and you can click on that button and you can then practice all of the questions that have the randomly generated components. So feel free to do that as part of your studying. The exam is open book, open note. It's available on WebAssign. I can't really restrict what you have access to, so I just ask the questions in a little more challenging way. And the other thing to know is that you're going to have 2 hours to complete it. So I put a time limit on it so that because it's open book, open note, I'm trying to make it a little bit more like an in-class exam. So don't just open it up thinking you're going to have all the time in the world to answer it. You're going to want to be prepared. So that's the exam. The other thing to know with the exam is the multiple choice matching are worth 2 points. The computational is each worth 3 points, and you can get partial credit on the computational questions. If you show your work, I can find out where maybe you went wrong. If you get the answer wrong, I can give you back some of the points, because you'll lose 3 points unless I can see the work that you did, and maybe I'll give you back 1 or 2 of the 3 points. So to show your work, you want to just do the work on a piece of paper and then scan that and upload that. You can upload it on WebAssign. The last question on WebAssign is a place to upload anything. And then, or if you're having a problem with that, you can email it to me right after you finish your exam. And so I can kind of see that the time is the same. If you're not sure how to get, the stuff that you've written down and to something to an electronic file that you can upload, simplest thing is to take a picture of it with your phone and then send me those pictures or upload them. Better option is you can actually, for most of you, can use your phone as a scanner. And so there are apps for both iPhones and Androids and so on that are scanning apps that will use your camera as a scanner. But if you have an iPhone, I know that you can use the Notes app, and it has a scanning function. So if you open up a new note, and then you'll see once you get into that note, there's a little camera icon. Click on that and it will take pictures, and those pictures will then be turned into a PDF scan, and you can do multiple pictures, and then it saves it all as one file, and then you can upload that or email that to me and so on. So that's something that will just make it easier, but that's where you can get partial credit. If you do not send me the extra work, I'm not always going to be able to give you extra credit, or the partial credit, I should say. So that's what you want to know to be prepared for this exam. And otherwise, again, reach out to me if you have any questions. I'll be posting some Muddy Points videos to go over anything from all the chapters for this exam, at least the first 3, probably 4. I'll get those uploaded and sent to you soon so that you can review those if anything was unclear. All right, good luck on the exam.